Hey everybody, it's David Breen, and it's time for a late night tutorial. Alright, so I just want to take a moment to apologize. Watching some of my tutorials, I've noticed how the keys on the keyboard seem to be really annoying when I'm pushing those down, and they creak and everything. It's really kind of distracting. So I'm going to keep my keyboard a little further away from the microphone. Alright. So this is going to be kind of a long video for anybody using 3D Studio Max that wants to know some tips and tricks for cloth. Now, I'm not talking about mCloth, I'm talking about the original cloth modifier. It's still a little bit more powerful than mCloth. mCloth is kind of a new tool, and they still have some issues to work out with it. Or, more features that need to be implemented. But for now we're going to go with the cloth. Cloth is still a really good modifier. And the thing is about the cloth modifier is that it's a little tricky to learn, and it seems to break down in simulation a lot because it likes to say that things were overstretched. It overstretched the cloth, and that will shut the simulation down, and it can be really frustrating. And it can set you back a lot of hours just playing with cloth, and a lot of people don't even use cloth because they don't want to deal with all the hassle of all the simulation time. And so it wasn't really until I started making the first scene for The Last Mice, here where Max is reading his apocalypse survival guide. It's not until I started doing some animation that I realized, okay, we need a better system for the cloth, because Max is wearing that jacket, and if it's the way it was with just one piece, simulating it, it was just a mess. And so I'm going to show you a different way that I just came up with to solve my problem, because the thing is I want the cloth to stick to his body, but I want the bottom part of it to, kind of move around as his feet hit it, and then I also want the cuffs around his wrists to move. But the rest of it I want to stay still. So here's what I'm doing differently. Instead of one piece, let me unhide. Here's the jacket. It doesn't have the textures on it because since I cut it up, it ruined the UV map, so I went ahead and just took it off for now. I just have to re-UV this later, and I'll make another tutorial where I show how to do that and explain exactly what UVW mapping is. But for now, here's the jacket, and what I've done, the goal here is to get this jacket on Max in that position as he's sitting there reading the book. So what I did, as you can see, there are three parts to this. There's the mid part, and this is the part of the jacket that will be both simulated with physics and attached to his body and following his mesh. And the color will be a simple skin wrap, and that will just follow along since this doesn't need to move at all. And then we have the cuffs, which are going to look really awesome when you have those flowing about and moving, or flapping about when he moves his hands. Okay, so basically this was just one piece, and I went into the edit poly and I selected what I wanted, and then you detach them. And now we have these three different distinct pieces. Alright, so what I want to do is I want to turn all of these into cloth, all three of them. So we just go to cloth, and we go to object properties, and we want to add objects and body, or whatever you call your object that your character's upper body or whatever is going to be colliding with your cloth. And There's a little glitch in this cloth modifier. You need to make sure you click between these a couple times, or else it'll just forget your settings. So the body is going to be a collision object, and what we're going to do is, since we are oh, and I have the wrong one selected, by the way. We don't want a cloth on this one, we just want a skin wrap. And well, first of all, before I get started, we need to move Max into position here, into his T-pose. So you always make sure that you have a T-pose, your original pose that you modeled your character in. Make sure you always have that on a layer so you can blend to it. So as you can see, here he is reading his book. Let's hide the book. And if I scroll back to frame 0, that's where he is inside his jacket. And so that's the goal, is to have the jacket follow him as he goes back. Okay. Jacket. So, this first part here, we're going to start with a basic skin wrap. Alright, skin wrap. Click Add, and then we want to click on his body. But we want to be really aware of what we're doing before we do that. So click off of Add. Now you can see the typology here on the jacket is pretty, and right here too, it's pretty low resolution. Whereas the rest of them, it looks a little higher resolution. And so what we want to do is kind of match these. We want to make sure that the resolution of the character matches that of the jacket. Now the jacket's a little too low res for cloth simulation purposes to get anything decent, so we want to kind of bring that up to the level of his body here. Let's delete these cloths, those were from earlier. So he's got one turbo smooth. So let's do the same with these. So we'll just drag the turbo smooth to all three of these. Alright, so now they all have the same amount of geometry, and that's about how much you want for a cloth simulation. Not too much. Yeah, just enough. Alright, now let's click on the top one again. Let's go that skin wrap. We're going to have to delete that and make another one on top of the turbo smooth, because that's the way it reads it upwards. So if you put the skin above the turbo smooth, it's saying it's skinning the turbo smooth information, and not skinning, but skin wrapping. And then Add. Now we can add his body. Click off Add, and face deformation fall off 10 is pretty good. So now when we move, you'll see that that top part stays. Alright, now for the, and also worth pointing out for sure, is you can't always get away with this cheat. It depends on the clothing style your character has. I was able to cut here at the seams of his collar and of the cuffs here in order to hide the break between the objects. The first time I tried breaking it here down the center, and you could definitely see the lighting would hit it differently, and it really looked bad. And so doing it this way, if you can put things inside of your, have the forethought to design your outfit a specific way to go with this, then life will be much easier if you decide to go with this technique. Alright, now let's grab the main body that we have here, and let's add a cloth. Now cloth is a very tricky and kind of glitchy modifier. So first thing you want to do is jump right into object properties. You want to add the objects that the cloth collides with. That's the first step. And now body, that's what it's called. Make sure you know what your body's called. Just call it body, makes it easy. And then on the body, you want to click on collision object. And this is a glitch here, so just immediately click on your cloth object. This is a jacket, backup, whatever. Click on cloth, and then something like cotton is good. click back on body, and you'll see that it took we had collision object checked, and it unchecked it. So you always want to double check that to make sure it's double checked. Okay. Then another thing here is on this jacket. The depth and offset has to do with how far away the jacket is from its mesh. I've tested this out, and 0.2 seems to be the best for both of those. So you just gotta make sure you change those. The body's a collision, jacket's cloth, cotton, and then just double check them real quick to make sure that they're doing what they should. Alright, click OK. Now what we want to do is we have these little pluses here, and that means extra options. So we click on the plus, we want to go to the first one, group. Now we want to select the vertices on the cloth here that we want to have stick to his body and just move with him but not act like cloth as far as dynamically. And that is going to be let's see, I think that'd be about here. I think that's what I did last time. Yeah. And then you hit make group, hit OK, hit surface. So this group of vertices we're going to attach to a surface, which is of course his body. And that's done. So now it's ready to simulate along with the collar. Subsamples, you can put that at like 2 or 3. Make sure you have end frame checked with a number to make sure it's right. Sometimes it might not simulate because you might have end frame checked and it's you're not on the right frame. It just won't go. Self collision if you want the cloth to hit itself, if that's relevant. Here it's not. Check intersections. I'm not really sure what that does. You can read up on that. Solid collision. You have to have this checked if you want the cloth to actually hit the object that you told it to collide with. And use sewing springs. This is just something, these are options for the garment maker, which I didn't use. Advanced pinching, I would assume, is just more calculations to how it handles more complex folds and pinching. Okay, and that's all good. You can see I turned the gravity or I amplified the gravity in a previous simulation because the cuffs weren't falling correctly, and so I wanted to get them down, and that seemed to work. But that's a little extreme. So if we click on Earth, it'll just take it back to what it is, or what it's supposed to be. Now, if we hit simulate, it should put him in the seat with that main part there. Everything up here will stay the same, and the bottom part will dynamically move about. So there he goes. You see up here it says message, no message, and when you start working with cloth, and right there it says DT increased, whatever DT is. And yeah, if your cloth gets too crazy, it shuts it down. And so yeah, if there's just too much for it to handle, or if things like get caught, some really weird stuff can happen with cloth, so you really have to be clean about how you make your cloth. And also, alright, so simulate local will not animate anything, it will just simulate the cloth in place, allowing gravity to take effect and just having it settle basically. So you can see how his cloth fell there. Now if we put another Turbo Smooth on this, you'll see how it kind of works its way out. It doesn't look half bad. It looked better in my other simulation because I think I put the vertice group, I think, was less up by here, and I allowed all of this to be simulated so it didn't abruptly cut it off. But it's still pretty decent. And then right here where it's poking through, that's fine because you add a shell to it later. Like if I add a shell right now. And then on the outside, so let's put that to 0. And then on the outside you drag it out. See, so it was like that. You just, it's gone. And all that did was make it a little bit thicker. He looks like he's a doctor about to wash his hands. That's hilarious. Alright, so now we're going to put the cuffs on. Alright, so we grab these cuffs, and we want to do the same thing we did with the cloth. So let's go through this again real fast. Cloth, object properties, add object, body. And then we go here, go to cloth, body, collision, and cotton, back to body. And we want to pick the same thing we did to have a consistent depth. 0.2, hit OK. And sometimes you might want to just jump back into object properties and make sure. Okay, sometimes it might change on you. Okay, everything's the same that it was. And I think, so we go back into here, go to group, and we want to grab right here this last little series of edge loops that go around, just to attach, you know, gotta attach some of the, what am I doing? Am I seeing things? There it is. Okay. It's kind of tripping me out. I have my view set right now to a different camera lens. Gives it a more cinematic feel, but things aren't at perfect 45-degree angles like I'm used to. Okay, so those are both selected. So now we go to make group. Okay, and surface. There we go. Now we can just hit simulate. Now I'm going to leave the wireframe on just to show you what that looks like. And simulate. So this time, as he goes into the chair, we have all of this here is all being calculated to just stay with his mesh, but right here on the edge it's told to also stay with his mesh, but then everything beyond that on his cuff is told to interact with his arm and gravity, not the chair, as you can see here, because I don't need it to. The important thing here is not how he gets into this pose, it's just that he gets into it. So it doesn't need to collide with this for now, because his hands are going to be up in the air a little bit, and that can always be done later. Alright, so there he is. And then we can just take that turbo smooth, put that on the cuffs. Whoops. Oh, that's right. They're both one object. Okay. And then you can put the shell on those too. Get some thickness inside. And bring back his book. And there he is with his, let's add another turbo smooth to the collar. Yeah. And now his jacket is on him, and it's in 3 pieces. And so now when he moves about, you can, if you need to, you only have to simulate the cuffs if his arms are moving. And then all of this here is being simulated by a skin wrap, so that's taken out of the equation. And then this main part, as it crashes, this main part here is got two things going on. While all these are being preserved, these are being simulated. So if this were all just one big giant piece, and you wanted just his cuffs to move for a certain situation, it might not simulate it correctly, or it might take a really long time because it's thinking about everything. And this way, when it's broken up and hidden with these seams, you can really target which parts you want to have simulated. So I hope you learned something and can adapt these techniques to your project.